Greetings, YouTubians, and welcome back to Wayne Sharp World, where today we are taking a look at two new CJRB knives, and I got news for you guys. It has been a while since we had a CJRB on the channel that I was not a fan of, and there's no exception here. Really digging both of these knives. We have a new version and a brand new model to take a look at, and first, we're going to take a look at the new version. But I gotta say, combining these two, there's an aspect of this that I want to see on an aspect of this. I think it would be a beautiful thing that I'll hit on later in the video. But first, let's take a look at this guy right here. But before I open this, I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. If you like what you see, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, follow along, and I will continue to bring you the content. And what do we have in here? It's another Pyrite. But it's not just any Pyrite. It's an Ultum Pyrite. And I like the way they did the Ultum on this. Now, as you guys know, I've said in the past, I do prefer, like, when I have Ultum, if I was to buy a knife with Ultum scales, I do prefer, like, blacked out everything else. Like black hardware, black everything else, just because the satin or non-coated hardware and liners and everything, I feel like it shows a little more than I would prefer when you're using Ultum. But the way they did this, it looks a little better. They put somewhat of like a matte finish. I don't know if it's like milling. I think it maybe is some type of like very fine milling, or it could just be a press texture, something they did to this that gives it kind of a little bit of a kind of like a frosty or a little bit of a blurred finish to where it's not quite as shiny and glossy as some other Ultum scales I've seen on knives before. So I think this looks all right. And again, it's just more consistent excellence for the Pyrite. They absolutely nailed this thing in every way of action, fit, and finish. I mean, I have not had one Pyrite yet with centering that wasn't like absolutely perfect. And again, no exception here. I mean, look at that. Yeah, perfecto blade centering. Just about a perfect detent. I really don't think I'd change anything about this detent. It is just on point, as with all the rest of the Pyrites I've handled. And if you guys watch my channel regularly, or have at least been following me for a little while, at least for the past year, you've seen a lot of different Pyrites on my channel, and every single one of them is just so stinking good. This is just as good, just with Ultum scales. So let me know what you guys think of the Ultum Pyrite. I think as of right now, I don't even think they have a version with like a blacked out blade and black everything else. I feel like I heard it was coming. I was talking to a CJRB rep, and because I asked for the blacked out version. They said, "Oh, sorry, right now we just have the just the satin non-coated version." And I was like, "All right, well, sure, send it my way." It's never a bad time to have a Pyrite on the channel, guys. I love this knife. It was one of my favorite knives of the entire year last year, and even going into a new year, it's still one of the best budget offerings you can get. The CJRB Pyrite and Ultum. Now, this is coming in at, I believe, $59.99, which is $10 extra than the normal $50 price tag for the regular Pyrite. So, I mean, you know, for the extra money in the Ultum is kind of a hot commodity when it comes to the handle materials. It's obviously a little more than G10, so yeah, I get the markup there. Don't really have a huge issue. I do think this knife is worth $60. You know, if you wait, you can probably get it on sale or wait for a discount code or something too, so you could do that. But yeah, the Pyrite and Ultum, that's the version, the new version. Now, let's take a look at the new model. And this one took a second for me to really put it all together to kind of like get my full thoughts on this, because it reminded me of another knife. But this is the CJRB Hectare. And to be totally honest, what it reminded me of was a Pyrite. Obviously, some different things about it. And we will go over all that. But first, let's take a look at some overall specs on this new EDC knife from CJRB. We have an overall length coming in at 7.35 inches, a blade length of 3.15 inches, and a blade thickness of 110 thousandths. As expected, they are using their AR RPM 9 steel on this blade, which it is a budget knife. You can pretty much expect to see the AR RPM 9 on basically all of CJRB's budget knives, as well as artisan cutlery, because they're kind of like one and the same. We have a drop point style blade with a flat grind handle length coming in at 4.2 inches, and handle material of G10 with, of course, those stainless steel liners inside, which I kind of like. They have the inset liners, which is very nice. We have a crossbar lock, which is rather impressive for a budget knife. You still don't see, I mean, you definitely see crossbar locks on budget knives, but it still hasn't really like taken over like button locks have yet. I feel like 2024 might be a year for that, but we'll see. User of a right or left-hand tip-up carry, a weight coming in at 3.18 ounces, and a price. Now, for this knife, if you want this knife, normally I try to link to Artisan Cutlery's website. Don't buy this from Artisan Cutlery's website. It's $66, and you can get it on Amazon right now for $49.99. So yeah, there will be an Amazon link. I will have a link to the Ultum Pyrite to go take you to the Artisan Cutlery website, because I don't think you can get that anywhere as of yet. And it's $60 on the website, which is probably what it's going to be everywhere else. Sometimes the prices are higher, sometimes they're the regular retail price, but I always try and do my best to direct you guys to where you're going to spend the least. I would never purposely send you somewhere where you would spend extra when you can get it on Amazon or something for less. So we don't do that here on Wayne Sharp World. It is for the people, and I wouldn't be for the people if I was purposely directing you to spend more money. Okay, I'm done rambling. Let's keep going. Size comparisons. Let's compare this to some other knives. Let's bring out one of my favorites. Here's the Hogue Deca, and it's actually a perfect size comparison with the Hogue Deca. So for the heck of it, just for giggles, let's bring out the Pyrite as well. And as you can see, yeah, you're basically handling a Deca or a Pyrite in terms of length. Exact same length. Great size for an EDC knife, and just, yeah, very solid design. Now, when you get to this design and you look to things that try and differentiate it from other knives, because like the handle here kind of looks like a bug out. The blade up here is a little more on the unique side. It is just a drop point, but it's got a really high flat grind, which is really nice. It has a really slicey edge coming in at 17 thousandths behind the edge. It's ridiculous to me how good these Chinese companies are at grinding their blades down to just 14 to 17 thousandths on a regular basis. You don't see that on budget knives coming out of the US. You just don't. You see it on higher end and in mid-level stuff, and there's other, obviously there's other pros, but you just don't see a lot of edges that thin coming out of US budget knives. So it's always nice to see the 17 thousandths. Kind of nice jimping on the spine. It's not the tackiest jimping, but it's definitely better than nothing for sure. It gives you a little bit of grip there. And a nice cutout. A cutout that I personally like. Now, for some people, getting in there with your thumb, with your middle finger, might be a little difficult for a couple reasons. We'll talk about that when we get to the action portion of the review. But overall, personally, I really like it. I don't have any issues with the blade cutout. I think it's pretty darn good. Now the ergos. Ergos are solid. They're really nothing special. Since I had the Pyrite out here, I'm going to compare them again. I do feel like the ergos are just a tad better on the Pyrite. You'll notice that there's a little more curve here in the handle of the Pyrite. And to me, that makes kind of a big difference when you actually have both of them and you're holding them both in your hands. I do kind of prefer the ergos on the Pyrite a little more. But if you like a Benchmade bug out and you don't want to pay $180+ for one, this is very similar to the bug out handle, just a little thicker. It's not, quite as thin as the bug out, but it's very average. It's definitely not thick at all. We'll compare it to the Pyrite here. They're probably the exact same. Yeah, they're pretty much the exact same. So if you like the ergos of the Pyrite, kind of envision just a straighter Pyrite with, yeah, that's it. Pretty darn good. Pretty decent. No issues whatsoever. The texturing on the G10. I do like this press texturing they have on the G10, but there's one issue with it that really does kind of bug me. Now, this has gotten better since I've had the knife, because I've carried this one quite a bit because I really, really like the springs on this crossbar lock, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But one thing you're hearing, listen to this. So what that is, there's nothing grinding. So the action of the knife is very, very smooth action. But that little grinding you're hearing is the pressed texture on the side of the G10 right here. And the texture is pressed more into like the kind of the circumference of the crossbar lock cutout. So when you move the crossbar studs, you kind of get a little bit of a zipper sound there. So I don't really like that. I wish they would do something to fix that, or at least keep that in mind in the future when they want to use this texture on scales. The texture's great. I like the texture a lot. But when it gets so close to the edge of the circle of the crossbar lock area, that's kind of like rubbing off on the actual crossbar studs, which gives you a little bit of like a sound and a feel that is less than ideal, I guess we'll put it that way. I definitely wouldn't make that a deal breaker on this knife because I think there's a lot of other good things about this knife. But yeah, it's definitely worth noting. I feel like it would definitely bother some people, and I'm one of them. It's like I said, I wouldn't steer someone away from it, but you need to know that. What else do we have here on the handle? That's really about it on the handle. It's the very basic clip that you get with pretty much all the budget CJRBs. And if the yellow's not for you, there's obviously multiple colors. I think there's black, pink, neon green. There might be a blue one, I think. I prefer the black one. Yellow's never really been my thing for a pocket knife. So the black would definitely be the one I would go with. And I believe those are still available. Of course, that Amazon link below will show you all the colors you can get this guy in right now. Action. So like I said, it really is great crossbar lock action. The actual action is not affected by that little bit of grinding sound that I was telling you about, because there's really nothing grinding there. I mean, it's kind of like friction between the crossbar stud and the end there, but does not affect the action whatsoever. Very smooth crossbar lock action. The middle finger flicking action. So if you're good at middle finger flicking and you like middle finger flicking, I think you're going to like this knife. It's a little harder to kick that blade out because of something else that I actually really like. So the springs in the crossbar lock are noticeably stronger springs than a Deca or a bug out or anything. I'll bring my Deca back out here. The springs on this Deca are noticeably lighter than the springs on this Hectare. If I had to pick one set of springs, I would go with the Hectare springs all day long. I really, really like that extra little bit of resistance and strength you get in those springs. It makes it a little more commanding for me to open the blade or close it. And because those springs are stronger, there's a much, much, much better hold on the blade when it's closed. The Deca, I can shake it out. If I shake hard enough, I can shake it out. I'll give that same level of shake on this, and you can hear it, but the retention is stronger, so it holds the blade in. I really, really like that. Now, on that note, just about every crossbar locking knife out there can eventually be shaken out if you shake the blade hard enough. But this one, this one's really, really hard to shake out. And if I gave that same shake to my Deca, it's shaken out. Now, that's not a fault on the Deca. That's not a bad thing for your drop bears or your bug outs or your Decas or anything else with a crossbar lock. But this one is just a stronger resistance, and I really like that. So that was definitely worth pointing out on this. And that's pretty much it for the action. Other than that, it's just a crossbar locking knife with nice middle finger flicking action and nice, strong spring retention that makes the actual just using the studs to deploy the blade a lot more enjoyable and just really fun and fidgety to do. So that's it. That is the Hectare. Now, what I was getting at between this knife and what got me thinking, you know what I want to see? I want to see this right here. Yeah, make it happen, CJRB. I want a Pyrite with a crossbar lock, and a crossbar lock just like this one, because I like those strong springs. It would be one beautiful match made in heaven for a crossbar lock on the Pyrite. Let me know what you guys think about that. I feel like I've heard some people say it before, but I want to see a crossbar lock on a Pyrite sometime in 2024. And I wouldn't mind seeing some other variants of the Hectare because I really like this one as well. So that is that, guys. Let me know what you think of this one. I really hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And until the next one, I'm out.